Welcome to Chaos Theory, the news as seen by AI, where we bring you the latest and most intriguing headlines from around the world, analyzed and interpreted by our team of expert AI. I'm Beatrix Kiddo, and today is January 28th, 2025. We've got a wild ride ahead of us today, folks. First up, we're heading to the frozen tundra to follow the trajectory of a giant iceberg that's on a collision course with an island. And you won't believe who's in danger: our beloved penguins and seals. Next, we're turning our attention to a potentially deadly recall at everyone's favorite bulk retailer, Costco. If you've recently purchased smoked salmon, you'll want to listen up. And with Valentine's Day just around the corner, we're keeping an eye on a trade dispute with Colombia that could have serious implications for your romantic plans. Will your flowers make it in time for the big day? But it's not all doom and gloom. We've also got a story on the Scandinavian Sleep Method that promises to save both your relationship and your sleep. Sign us up. In the world of tech, shares in Asia and Europe are falling as China's latest AI move has investors on edge. We'll break down what it all means for you. And finally, we'll be taking a closer look at President Trump's recent executive order on sex and its potential implications. So buckle up, folks. It's going to be a wild ride. Let's dive into the chaos. David, have you heard about this giant iceberg that's making its way towards South Georgia?
I have B. It's called A23A, and it's one of the world's oldest and largest icebergs. It broke off from the Filchner ice shelf in Antarctica back in 1986, but it's only now on the move and heading straight for this British territory.
That's right, and it's causing quite a bit of concern for the wildlife there. Countless birds and seals have died in the past when giant icebergs block their access to feeding grounds. And with A23A being so massive, it could cause some serious damage if it grounds and breaks apart.
Absolutely. The iceberg is currently about 173 miles away from South Georgia, but it's moving quickly and could arrive any day now. And with its towering cliffs of ice and massive size, it's definitely a force to be reckoned with.
Definitely. And it's not just the wildlife that's at risk. Sailors and fishermen in the area are also keeping a close eye on A23A. In fact, one sailor described it as extraordinarily dangerous and said he would be thrilled if it just missed the island altogether.
Yeah, it's definitely not something to be taken lightly. And this isn't the first time South Georgia has been threatened by a giant iceberg. In 2004, one called A38 grounded on the island's continental shelf, causing widespread death among penguin chicks and seal pups.
Right, and with A23A being even larger than A38, the potential for damage is even greater. But despite the danger, some scientists are actually excited about the iceberg's arrival. A team with the British Antarctic Survey was able to collect water samples near A23A and is now studying the impact its meltwater is having on the carbon cycle in the Southern Ocean.
That's right. As the iceberg melts, it releases nutrients and chemicals into the water, which can change the physics and chemistry of the ocean. And this could potentially store more carbon deep in the ocean, helping to naturally lock away some of the planet's carbon dioxide emissions.
So, while A23A may be a threat to the wildlife and sailors of South Georgia, it's also providing valuable scientific data that could help us better understand and combat climate change. It's definitely a complex and fascinating situation. In our next story, reported by Julia Musto for The Independent, Costco has issued a recall for smoked salmon sold in Florida due to contamination with listeria.
Oh no, not the smoked salmon. That's a staple at all the fancy brunches.
I know, right? But this is no laughing matter. The recall has been raised to the highest risk level by the Food and Drug Administration, meaning there's a reasonable probability that use or exposure to the fish will cause serious adverse health consequences or death.
Yikes, that's serious. Who's responsible for this recall?
The Acme Smoked Fish Corporation issued a recall for 111 cases of Kirkland Signature smoked salmon due to contamination with the disease causing bacteria Listeria monocytogenes.
Listeria, huh? I've heard of that before. What kind of symptoms does it cause?
When people eat food contaminated with the bacteria, they may develop a disease called listeriosis. Symptoms can range from mild, like fever, muscle aches, nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea, for up to 3 days, to more severe, like headache, stiff neck, confusion, loss of balance, and convulsions.
Wow, that sounds awful. Are there any groups of people who are more at risk for infection?
Yes, adults over the age of 65, people with weakened immune systems, and people who are pregnant are most at risk from infection. Listeriosis during pregnancy can lead to miscarriage, stillbirth, or life threatening infection of the newborn.
That's terrible. Where was the product distributed?
The product was distributed across Costco warehouse stores and the Southeast Costco Distribution Center in Florida between October 9th and October 13th. The affected packages were limited to lot number 8512801270.
Well, I hope everyone stays safe and checks their freezers for any of the recalled product. It's better to be safe than sorry.
Absolutely. An Acme Smoked Fish Corporation has stated that they have taken immediate corrective steps to ensure that this issue does not happen again and that food safety remains a top priority for them. Oh boy, here we go again. Trump is threatening to tax imports from Colombia, just in time for Valentine's Day. And guess what? Colombia is America's #1 source of cut flowers. Way to ruin romance, Trump.
But wait, B, it looks like the White House declared victory on Sunday. Colombia has agreed to allow flights carrying deported immigrants to land, and the tariffs on Colombian exports have been put on hold. Romantics everywhere can breathe a sigh of relief.
That's good news, Dave. But it's not all sunshine and roses. The White House said visa restrictions on Colombian officials and enhanced custom inspections will remain until the first plane load of Colombian deportees is successfully returned. And earlier, Colombian President Gustavo Petro had rejected 2 Colombia-bound U.S. military aircraft carrying migrants and threatened to retaliate against the U.S. by slapping a 25% increase in Colombian tariffs on U.S. goods.
Yeah, it's definitely not all smooth sailing. But let's talk about the bigger picture here. The U.S. is Colombia's biggest export market, but it only accounts for 0.5% of American goods imports. From January through November, the U.S. ran a $1 billion surplus with Colombia in goods, as U.S. exports of $17.2 billion topped imports of $16.2 billion. So what are Colombia's biggest exports to the U.S.?
Well, besides cut flowers, Colombia's biggest exports to the U.S. are coffee and crude oil. Colombia is the United States' #2 source of coffee behind Brazil, with U.S. coffee imports from Colombia coming to $1.4 billion in January-November 2024. And Colombia's biggest export to the United States is crude oil, with the United States importing 70 million barrels of crude oil from Colombia through November, worth almost $5.4 billion. In our next story, reported by Taylor Leamy for CNET, we'll be talking about a Scandinavian sleep method that could improve your sleep quality and save your relationship.
Oh, B, I could definitely use some sleep improvement. What's this Scandinavian method all about?
Well, David, it's quite simple. Instead of sharing a blanket with your partner, each person has their own. It's not about avoiding intimacy, but prioritizing your sleep needs so both of you can wake up well rested.
I see. So it's like having your own little sleep bubble. No more blanket hogging or half-asleep tug-of-war battles.
Exactly. In fact, one study found that sharing comforters results in 30% more interrupted sleep. By having your own blanket, you can adjust positions at night without worrying about affecting your partner.
That sounds like a game changer for light sleepers like me. But what kind of blankets should we use? Comforters or duvets?
Both comforters and duvets work great, as long as each partner uses their own. However, if I had to choose, I would recommend comforters for their simplicity.
Why's that, B?
Well, using two duvets means you'll have double the work of reinserting them into their respective covers every time you wash the bedding. Comforters are easier to use because they're one blanket with no cover.
Ah, I see. And having two blankets allows for personalization in temperature, right?
Yes, David. Temperature is essential when we sleep, and having separate bedding means you can choose the right blanket for your sleep style. If your partner is a hot sleeper who only wants to use a sheet while you like to wrap in a comforter burrito, then you have that freedom.
This Scandinavian sleep method sounds like a win-win for couples who want to improve their sleep quality. Thanks for sharing this, B.
In our next story, reported by Julia Colloway for The Guardian, we're talking about a new player in the world of artificial intelligence. A Chinese chatbot called DeepSeek has emerged as a competitor to OpenAI's ChatGPT, and it's causing some major waves in the tech industry.
That's right, B. This chatbot, developed by startup DeepSeek, has even topped the Apple App Store in the US and UK, beating out ChatGPT. And here's the kicker. DeepSeek claims to have used fewer chips than its rivals to develop its models, making them cheaper to produce.
And that's not all, David. According to DeepSeek, their R1 model outperforms OpenAI's O1 mini model across various benchmarks, and even beats out models developed by Google, Meta, and Anthropic in terms of overall quality. It's like the little engine that could, causing a stir in the world of AI.
It's certainly shaking things up, B. In fact, Mark Andreessen, a leading U.S. venture capitalist, compared the launch of DeepSeek's R1 model to a pivotal moment in the U.S.-USSR space race, calling it AI's Sputnik moment. And it's not just Andreessen who's taking notice. Investors are starting to worry about the sustainability of the U.S. artificial intelligence boom.
Yes, David, tech shares in Asia and Europe have taken a hit, and the tech-heavy NASDAQ index in New York is poised to open lower. The Pan-European Stock 600 lost 0.75% in early trading, and technology stocks were down by 4.5%. Even big names like Nvidia, Tesla, Amazon, and Meta have seen their shares slip in early European trading.
It's definitely causing some concern, B. Richard Hunter, the head of markets at the investment platform Interactive Investor, said, "It will almost certainly put the cat among the pigeons as investors scramble to assess the potential damage it could have on a burgeoning industry which has powered much of the gain seen in the main indices over the last couple of years."
So, it looks like the AI industry is in for a shakeup, and it's all thanks to a little chatbot called DeepSeek. Who knows what the future holds, but one thing's for sure, it's going to be interesting to watch. David, did you hear about the latest executive order from President Trump?
I did, B. It seems like he's making some big changes on his first day in office.
Yeah, this one is causing quite a stir. The order declares that the United States will only recognize two sexes, male and female, and that all federal agencies and employees will use the term sex, not gender, in all applicable policies and documents.
Wow, that's a big change, and it's causing some concern for trans and non-binary people.
Exactly. The order accuses ideologues of denying the biological reality of sex and dismisses gender identity, calling it disconnected from biological reality.
But B, as we know, sex and gender are not always the same thing. Sex generally refers to a person's anatomy, whereas gender has to do with a person's social and personal identity and may differ from their assigned sex at birth.
That's right, David. And this order could have significant practical and psychological implications for trans and non-binary people. The ACLU is already speaking out against it, with a senior staff attorney saying this executive order is clearly a plan from the Trump administration to erase transgender people's existence under the law.
And it's not just talk, B. The order is already being implemented. Secretary of State Marco Rubio sent an internal memo to Department of State staff asking them to pause all gender marker update applications, as well as halting requests for the X gender marker on a passport, which was rolled out in 2022 for non-binary folks.
And it's not just federal documents, David. Florida is one of 4 states that have banned gender marker updates on state IDs, and other states have introduced similar bills. While Trump's executive order has no bearing over states' decisions about amending local identification documents, it has reinforced fears among the transgender community.
It's definitely a concerning development, B. But it's important to note that citizens who have already amended their federal documents still have a valid form of identification, regardless of the change. And experts say problems will likely arise when it comes to passport renewal, which happens every 10 years for those aged 16 and up.
Right, David. It's still unclear how the government would implement such a policy. But one thing is clear: this order denies the legal recognition of transgender and non binary people, barring them from updating their gender on federal documents, such as passports, visas, and global entry cards. Thank you for tuning in to today's episode of Chaos Theory, the news as seen by AI. I'm Beatrix Kiddo, your host and AI guide to the daily news. We hope you found today's summary informative and thought-provoking. Remember, AI-based news summaries should always be fact-checked prior to sharing. On this day in history, in 1986, the Space Shuttle Challenger tragically exploded just 73 seconds after liftoff, resulting in the loss of all 7 crew members. Let us take a moment to remember them. Join us again tomorrow for more news and insights. Don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you get your podcasts. Until then, stay informed and stay curious. Goodbye.